When talking about curriculum, there are two important parts. Firstly, the knowledge we select, and secondly, the order in which we teach it. While I consider these two parts, I want to advocate for a different visualization of the curriculum. Order is a deep and central concept embedded into the meaning of the word curriculum. The word curriculum comes from Latin, meaning a running or a course, giving us the sense of a dedicated pathway laid out in advance. If you follow that path, you will be guided towards the knowledge and skills you need in life. And you can see this reflected in the Australian Curriculum website, where the knowledge and skills are ordered by year level, for example, year 9. And within the year level, there is considerable flexibility in the order you learn the content, but little flexibility between years. The Australian curriculum has obviously tried to make this a logical order, where knowledge and skills are presented at the appropriate developmental age, and each piece builds on what came before and prepares you for what comes next. However, I think this is an impossible job for two reasons. First, students are different, and second, you cannot be responsive within a fixed path. In most classes, students arrive with different knowledge, different cognitive strengths, different cultural backgrounds, different levels of motivation, different interests, and different school attendance rates. The idea of a single path that all students must traverse at the same time encourages teachers to ignore this reality. Ignore the diversity of who is actually sitting in front of you. What often happens is some students cannot keep up, while others already know the content and feel bored. But we continue to drag them along this path regardless. Many teachers complain about this, saying, "How can I create a lesson that caters for students with such different knowledge and skill levels?" And personally, I think this is one of the fundamental issues within the school system. A powerful way for teachers to understand the reality of their learners is through a thing called formative assessment, which is where you're constantly gathering evidence from students about their learning to make informed decisions about what students should focus on next. And this brings up the second issue, is that if the path is fixed, this becomes a completely redundant exercise. You might gather evidence that these students simply don't understand. You have the information, but you cannot act on it. So a fixed path leaves no room to respond to where students actually are, making the job of a teacher really defeating. There are schools that do cater for their students. However, this is not because of the curriculum structure, but despite it. So what should we do? In the end, there always has to be an order in which you learn the knowledge and skills. The next thing a student learns should really be within their zone of proximal development, so the knowledge and skills that are just beyond what they already know, but are well within their capacity to learn. So students really need to be at the core of this ordering. Rather than dragging all students along a single path, we should be responsive to where each student actually is, and order should dynamically reflect this. Now, the other component of a curriculum is the set of knowledge and skills that have been selected to learn. The body of human knowledge is vast, and as you can only learn a small portion of it, we should try and select the most valuable knowledge and skills. I think the appropriate word for this selected knowledge is a canon. The word traces back to the Greek meaning a measuring rod used by architects and builders, and this carries a sense of judgment, of holding knowledge up to a measuring rod and asking whether it is worthy of being learned. Not all knowledge is equally valuable, and what is valuable to one student may not be valuable to another, depending on who they are, how they think, where they live, and how they engage with the world. And the value of knowledge for an individual may change over time as they and the world change. Within the canon, we should mark knowledge with different priority levels depending on their value and teach high priority knowledge first. But this does raise the question of who has the power to decide which knowledge is valuable and which is not. And there is a tension at the heart of this between students deciding what is valuable and adults deciding for them. A student-centered view says that individuals should have a say in pursuing what they find meaningful, They are the ones who have to live with what they are taught. They will suffer or benefit from the knowledge or lack of knowledge they carry with them through life. They also have a unique insight into their own perception of the world. The paternal view pushes back and says students don't yet know what they like or what they will need. We cannot leave it entirely to them. As adults, we have lived in this world longer and we see what is actually worth knowing. We have a responsibility to make those decisions on their behalf. When we look more closely at the paternal view, this does raise another question. Who amongst the adults should select the valuable knowledge? Those closest to the students, such as parents and teachers. Parents love their children deeply and obviously want to see them surviving and flourishing in the world. Teachers also learn about students and their interesting capabilities and bring professional knowledge around these matters. Should it be institutions like governments and universities that have a broader perspective, but maybe are a little bit more removed from individual students? Governments want education to serve the national interest and society as a whole. Universities are magnets for knowledgeable people that can think deeply about what is worth knowing. Should it be corporations? They have an insight into the knowledge and skills required for students to gain employment in the future. And obviously this is not a complete list. Each of these groups has something to offer, but none of them, I think, should hold the power to decide what is valuable knowledge. In a perfect world, the canon would be selected and prioritized by a group of the most intelligent, knowledgeable, and wise individuals that the world can offer. And these individuals would have characteristics maybe of humility, curiosity, commitment to truth, and will be free from the pull of profits, political agendas, and self-interests. And they would have a deep care for humanity and want the very best for these students, their futures, and the society they live in. Maybe a little bit idealistic. So my opinion is that students' choice really does matter, but they shouldn't just be dropped into this vast sea of human knowledge and left to find their own way. They should be guided towards areas of knowledge that experts have selected as being relevant and valuable to them. So given I have now explored these two components of the curriculum, the knowledge we select, the canon, and the order in which we teach it, I think this prompts for a different visualization of the curriculum. The canon should be visualized as a network of interconnected chunks of knowledge, like a semantic network. Each chunk of knowledge has a priority rating, which determines how valuable it is. And when looking to start learning this knowledge, there are many different entry points. In other words, you can choose many spots to start learning from. You will try and start with the most valuable knowledge within the domain indicated by the priority level. And some chunks will connect you to its prerequisite knowledge to learn first. So obviously there's some knowledge you can't just learn, you need to learn the prerequisite knowledge, but that would all be connected. And as you start learning this knowledge, you will sort of build out these circles of understanding. And you'll have some students who learn quickly and will cover large areas of this network, and others will learn less. But the brilliant thing is that what they do cover will be highly valuable knowledge. And some students will be driven by their own curiosity and motivation and will deeply cover certain areas and perhaps not touch other areas as much. So in summary, curriculum has two components: the knowledge we select and the order in which we teach it. The ordering of this knowledge needs to deeply consider and be responsive to the individual students themselves. And the knowledge selected for the curriculum, which we call the canon, should be visualized as a network of interconnected chunks of knowledge. And each chunk of knowledge that has been selected should be given a priority rating based on its value to the students and humanity. And the question of who decides what is valuable knowledge and what priority rating it should get is complex, but should combine students and experts' input. So I'm going to finish with a question. What do you think is valuable knowledge? And what knowledge or skills would you want every student to come away from school having learnt and remembered? Thank you.